The first thing everyone at Harrison Preparatory learns about Alexandra Chen is that she's perfect. Perfect grades, straight A's since freshman year, predicted valedictorian, already accepted early decision to Yale. Perfect looks, glossy black hair that never seems to frizz even during swim meets, designer clothes that probably cost more than my mom's monthly rent, and the kind of effortless grace that makes even walking down the hallway look like a fashion show. Perfect life, parents who are both successful surgeons, a sprawling mansion in the most expensive part of town, and summer vacations that sound like luxury travel magazine covers, winter break in the Maldives, spring holiday in the Swiss Alps. And I, Marcus Rodriguez, had the misfortune of being assigned as her lab partner in AP chemistry. "You're late," she said without looking up from her notebook as I slid onto the stool beside her. Her fountain pen, because of course she used a fountain pen, made elegant loops across the page as she copied down the day's equations. "Sorry, Princess, some of us have to take the bus." The nickname slipped out before I could stop it. It wasn't the first time someone had called her that, but it was usually whispered behind her back, not said to her face. She stiffened slightly but otherwise didn't react. "The experiment requires precise timing. We've already lost 3 minutes. I'm sure you'll find a way to maintain your perfect grade despite my terrible influence." I pulled out my worn chemistry textbook, the corners soft from 2 years of hand-me-down use. "Actually," she said, finally looking at me, "your grade in this class is only 0.2% lower than mine. So clearly you're capable of being on time, you just choose not to be." I blinked, thrown off guard, not by the fact that she knew my grade. Alex Chen probably knew everyone's grades, but by the lack of judgment in her voice. It was just a statement of fact, like one of her chemistry equations, been checking up on me. "Princess, stop calling me that." Again, no anger, just quiet firmness. And yes, I did research all potential lab partners before rankings were submitted. I like to be prepared. Of course she did. Alexandra Chen didn't leave anything to chance. Which made me wonder why she'd chosen me as her partner. I wasn't unpopular, exactly, but I wasn't part of her usual crowd. The scholarship kid who worked weekends at his uncle's auto shop didn't exactly run in the same circles as Harrison Prep's resident perfect girl. "So why'd you pick me?" I asked, genuinely curious. "There must have been better options." James Chen. "No relation, I'm guessing, but definitely more your speed." She began measuring out chemicals with precise movements. "James would have expected me to do all the work while he took equal credit. You actually understand chemistry." She glanced at me briefly. "Even if you are chronically late." I found myself smiling despite my best efforts not to. There was something almost refreshing about her bluntness, no fake flattery, no social maneuvering. Just facts and figures and precisely measured solutions. "Well, don't worry, I won't let my terrible time management skills ruin your perfect GPA. "I know you won't." She handed me a beaker of blue liquid. "Now, can we focus on the experiment? We need to record the reaction temperature every 30 seconds for the next 10 minutes. We worked in surprisingly comfortable silence after that. Alexandra, Alex, no, definitely Alexandra, was efficient but not bossy. She didn't hover when it was my turn to take measurements or double-check my calculations. She just ... trusted that I knew what I was doing. It was weird. Everything I thought I knew about Alexandra Chen said she should be an insufferable perfectionist, the kind who redid her partner's work because it wasn't up to her standards. Instead, she was ... competent, focused, almost relaxing to work with. "In a way, you're staring," she said without looking out from her notebook. "Just trying to figure you out. There's nothing to figure out. I'm exactly what everyone thinks I am." But something in the way she said it made me wonder if that was true. It sounded rehearsed, like one of our chemistry formulas. Input A plus input B equals expected result C. Alexandra Chen, perfect grades plus perfect life equals perfect girl. Simple, clean, believable, so why didn't I believe it? The bell rang before I could pursue that thought further. Alexandra was already packing up her designer bag, each movement precise and economical. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked. Though we both knew the class schedule wasn't optional. "I'll try not to be late, Princess." She paused at the door, and for a moment, something flickered across her face. something that didn't fit the equation at all, but then it was gone, replaced by her usual serene expression. "No," she said quietly, "you won't." She was right. The next day, for the first time in my academic career, I arrived 5 minutes early to chemistry class. Alexandra didn't comment on it, just nodded once and began setting up our equipment. But I could have sworn I saw the ghost of a smile play across her lips. What I didn't know then, what none of us at Harrison Prep knew, was that Alexandra Chen's perfect equation was about to fall apart. And I would be there to witness every messy, beautiful moment of it, but that's getting ahead of the story. For now, I was just the chronically late scholarship kid who had somehow become lab partners with Harrison Prep's perfect princess. And I was starting to suspect that perfect wasn't nearly as simple as everyone thought. It's funny how quickly routines can change. 1 month into being Alexandra Chen's lab partner, and suddenly I was showing up early to class every day, actually doing the pre-lab readings, and finding myself weirdly invested in our experiments. "The titration's off," Alexandra said one afternoon, frowning at our results. "We should have reached the end point by now." I leaned over to check her calculations, close enough to catch the faint scent of something expensive and floral. "Maybe we should try." "Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Chen," Mr. Walsh's voice cut through our discussion. "While I appreciate your dedication, class ended 5 minutes ago." We both looked up, startled to find the classroom empty except for us. Alexandra immediately began packing up her things, but I noticed her hands lingering over the data we'd collected, reluctant to leave the puzzle unsolved. "We can finish this tomorrow," I said, but she shook her head. "Can't, I have ... commitments after school tomorrow. We'll have to redo the whole experiment next week." There it was again, that slight hesitation before commitments. The same one I'd noticed when she turned down study group invitations or declined to stay late for chemistry club. For someone who spoke with such precision about everything else, these small stumbles stood out like typos in a perfect essay. "Everything okay, princess?" She shot me a look. She still hated the nickname, but I'd noticed she'd stopped actively protesting it. "Everything's fine, I just have a busy schedule." "Right, those silver spoon obligations must be really demanding." I meant it as a joke, the kind of gentle ribbing we'd fallen into over the past month. But something dark flickered across her face before she could hide it. "You don't know anything about my obligations," she said quietly, and then she was gone, leaving me with the lingering sense that I'd stumbled onto something I wasn't supposed to see. I probably would have spent the rest of the week overthinking that interaction if my uncle hadn't called that night with an emergency. "Sorry, Mio," he said, his voice tired over the phone. "I know it's your night off, but Mario called in sick and I've got a transmission that needs to be done by morning." "It's fine, Tio. I'll be there in 20. That's how I found myself at Joe's auto shop at 11 p.m. on a school night, hands deep in an engine, trying not to think about unfinished chemistry experiments or the look on Alexandra's face when I'd made that stupid joke. Around 1 a.m., my stomach reminded me that dinner had been several hours ago. The only place open this late was theDiner, a 24-hour joint a few blocks away. It wasn't exactly fine dining, but they made decent burgers and didn't ask questions when you showed up covered in motor all at odd hours. The bell above the door chimed as I pushed it open, the familiar smell of coffee and grease welcoming me into the fluorescent-lit space. I was heading for my usual booth when I saw her. At first, I thought I was hallucinating because there was no way Alexandra Chen, Harrison Prep's perfect princess, daughter of surgical royalty, early admission to Yale Alexandra Chen, was wearing a blue polyester uniform and taking orders at theDiner at 1 a.m. on a school night. But it was her, the same graceful movements, the same precise handwriting as she jotted down orders, the same glossy black hair, though now pulled back in a practical ponytail instead of falling in perfect waves. She hadn't seen me yet. I could have slipped out, pretended I'd never seen this bizarre world version of Harrison Prep's Golden Girl. It would have been the kind thing to do ... but I couldn't move. I was too fascinated by the way she navigated between tables, somehow making even the clunky uniform look elegant. She was different here. Still efficient, still focused, but somehow more ... real. The plastic smile she wore at school was replaced by something smaller but more genuine as she chatted with the late-night regulars. Then she turned and our eyes met for a moment. We just stared at each other. I watched as emotions flickered across her face. Shock, embarrassment, fear, and finally, a kind of resigned determination. She walked over to my table, order pad in hand, chin held high like she was walking into a Yale alumni interview instead of taking my order at a cheap diner in the middle of the night. "Welcome to Dots," she said, her voice perfectly steady. "What can I get for you?" I could have played along, pretended this was normal. Ordered my usual burger and never mentioned it again. Instead, I said, "So, this is what you meant by commitments." She flinched slightly but held her ground. "Are you going to order something, or are you just here to gloat?" "Gloat?" I blinked, genuinely confused. Why would I gloat? Now it was her turn to look confused because you've just discovered Harrison Prap's perfect princess working at a diner in the middle of the night. Because this is probably the biggest gossip bomb to hit the school since James Chen, no relation, got caught cheating on the Sats. She spat out the nickname Perfect Princess like it tasted bad. And suddenly a lot of things started making sense. Her reaction to the nickname, her careful management of her image, the way she seemed to recite her perfection like a memorized formula. "Actually," I said, wiping some motor oil off my hands with a napkin, "I was just going to order a burger. And maybe ask if you wanted to sit down when you take your break. You know, if perfect princesses are allowed to take breaks." She stared at me for a long moment, like she was trying to solve a particularly complex equation. "Finally," she said, 15 minutes. I get 15 minutes at 1:30, and I don't hate the chocolate cream pie here." "Chocolate cream pie it is," she nodded once, businesslike, then turned to head back to the kitchen. But she paused after a few steps. "Marcus." She'd never used my first name before. "Thank you. For what?" "For not running straight to Instagram with this." I thought about the way she'd trusted me in chemistry, never hovering, never doubting. Maybe it was time to return the favor. "Your secrets are safe with me, princess, though I gotta say, the polyester uniform, really not your best look." She rolled her eyes, but I caught the ghost of a smile as she walked away, and for the first time, I wondered if maybe we'd both been wrong about what perfect really meant. 15 minutes, enough time to start solving the mystery of Alexandra Chen, though something told me this equation was going to be a lot more complicated than anything we'd encountered in AP chemistry. The thing about secrets is that they're like chemical reactions. Once started, they tend to cascade into something bigger than you expected. Alexandra slid into the booth across from me exactly 15 minutes later, still in her uniform but with her name tag removed. A slice of chocolate cream pie sat between us like a peace offering. "So," I said, pushing the plate toward her, "I'm guessing Yale doesn't know about your night job." She picked up a fork and carefully cut off a small piece of pie. "Yale doesn't know a lot of things." She paused, then added quietly, "Neither do my parents. They think you're where, exactly, at 1 a.m. on a school night, asleep in my bed, like any good daughter should be." Her laugh was hollow. "Our housekeeper, Mrs. Liu, covers for me. She's the only one who knows." I thought about my own mom, how she'd probably ground me for life if she caught me working this late. But then again, she'd also understand why someone might need to. "You don't have to tell me," I said, "but why? I mean, your parents are both surgeons. It's not like you need the money." Alexandra stared at her pie for a long moment. "Have you ever noticed how everyone at Harrison Prep just assumes things about you? Like, they look at your scholarship status and think they know your whole story. I had every day since freshman year. Well, they do the same thing with me. Rich parents equals rich kid. Perfect grades equals perfect life." She stabbed at the pie with more force than necessary. "Nobody ever asks why I need to be perfect, they just expect it. And the late-night diner shifts, my parents... double quotes." She hesitated, rearranging sugar packets with precise movement. "They believe in earning things, everything I have, my car, my phone. My college fund comes with conditions. Maintain a 4.0 GPA, win the right competitions, get into the right college, and if you don't, then I don't deserve them." She said it simply, like reciting a law of thermodynamics. "The thing is, they're right. I should earn my own way, just ... not in the way they think I should. So you're working night shifts at a diner to ... prove a point." I'm working night shifts to build my own safety net. She looked up at me then, her eyes fierce. Yale's early decision acceptance is conditional on maintaining my grades and activities. But the financial aid package they offer ... it's not enough. My parents agreed to pay the difference, but it comes with conditions. I finished for her. She nodded. For years of medical school. Their choice of specialty, their choice of hospital for residency. Their whole plan for my life mapped out in perfect detail. And what do you want? I want to study chemistry. Her voice got quiet but more intense. Not pre-med chemistry, but real research. I want to work in a lab, discover new compounds, maybe develop better renewable energy solutions. I want to. She cut herself off, looking embarrassed. Sorry, I don't usually ... talk about this. No, keep going. It's kind of nice seeing you passionate about something that isn't a grade. She smiled, a real smile, not her usual polite one, and something in my chest did a weird flip. The point is, she continued, I've been saving everything I make here. By the time Yale starts, I'll have enough to cover the gap in financial aid, not forever, but enough for the first year, enough to prove I can do it on my own. I thought about all the times I'd seen her perfectly put together at school, never a hair out of place, never a grade below perfect. All while working nights, keeping secrets, and planning her escape. You're kind of badass, you know that? She nearly choked on her pie. I'm what badass, like, seriously hardcore. Most people I know would crack under that kind of pressure. But you're just ... handling it. Plus, I gestured at her uniform. You make polyester look almost decent. Almost, she raised an eyebrow, but she was fighting a smile. Well, let's not get carried away, princess. The nickname felt different now, less mocking, more like a private joke between friends, because somehow, between the late-night pie and the secrets shared over sugar packets, that's what we'd become. But then her break timer beeped, and reality crashed back in. I should get back to work, she said, standing up, and you should get some sleep. We have that chemistry test tomorrow, today, technically. I checked my phone. 1:47 a.m. Want me to save you a seat? Actually ... double quote. She hesitated. Would you mind if we didn't act any different at school? It's just ... your perfect image to maintain. Don't worry, princess, your secret double life is safe with me. She relaxed slightly. Thank you for listening. And for the pie, anytime, though next time, maybe we could meet somewhere that doesn't require uniforms or motor oil. The words were up before I could think them through. Was I actually asking out Alexandra Chen? More importantly, was she actually blushing? I'd like that, she said softly. Then, more businesslike, but first, you need to leave a tip. This perfect princess has rent to pay. I laughed and left what was probably too much money on the table. But watching her walk back to work, head high, shoulders straight, still somehow elegant in that ridiculous uniform, I had a feeling I'd be leaving a lot of tips at theDiner in the near future. As I stepped out into the cold night air, I realized something. The perfect equation I thought I had solved was getting more complex by the minute. And for once in my life, I was actually looking forward to doing more math. Life has a funny way of testing hypotheses just when you think you've figured out all the variables. For 2 weeks after our late-night conversation at Alexandra and I maintained our careful equilibrium. Perfect lab partners by day, secret friends by night. I started taking more evening shifts at my uncle's shop, coincidentally finishing work just in time to grab a midnight burger at She started saving me a booth in the corner away from the windows, where we'd share pie and conversation during her breaks. It was a good system, a stable compound, until it wasn't. The catalyst came in the form of Brittany Watson, social media queen of Harrison Prep, who decided to celebrate her 18th birthday at, of all places, Diner. Who even goes to a diner for their birthday? I overheard her telling her friends in the hallway, but Daddy says it's like retro chic now. All the influencers are doing these ironic late-night diner posts. My blood ran cold. I tried to catch Alexandra's eye in chemistry class, but she was focused on our experiment with unusual intensity, measuring solutions with robot-like precision. You can't work tonight, I said under my breath as we cleaned up our lab station. I need the hours, she replied just as quietly. And Brittany's party isn't until 11, my shift ends at 10. But we both knew how these things worked. Teenage birthday parties never started on time, especially not ones designed for social media impact. I spent that evening at the auto shop, checking my phone every few minutes, unable to focus on the transmission I was supposed to be fixing. At 10:30, I couldn't take it anymore. Taking my break, Tio. I called out, already heading for the door. Dots was chaos. Brittany and her crew had taken over half the diner, their designer bags and loud laughter completely out of place against the worn vinyl booths. They were passing around colorful milkshakes and taking selfies with exaggerated poses, treating the whole place like some kind of quirky film set. And there was Alexandra, still in her uniform despite her shift supposedly being over, delivering plates to their table with mechanical efficiency. Oh my God, Brittany's voice cut through the diner noise. Alexandra Chen. The plates in Alexandra's hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. Welcome to Dots. Can I get you anything else? I cannot believe this. Brittany was already pulling out her phone. Harrison Preparatory perfect princess working as a waitress. This is literally the best birthday present ever, Brit. Alexandra started, but she was cut off by the sound of camera shutters and excited whispers. Wait until everyone sees this. Rich girl reality check. That'll make a perfect caption, right? I was moving before I could think it through, shouldering my way through the crowd of onlookers. Phone down, I said, stepping between Brittany and Alexandra. Marcus. Brittany blinked in surprise. What are you? I said. Phone down. I kept my voice low but firm. Or maybe we should talk about how you got that in calculus last semester. You know, the test where you mysteriously had all the answers written on your water bottle. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't try me. For a tense moment, no one moved, then Brittany slowly lowered her phone. Whatever, she said, trying to sound dismissive. It's not even worth posting about. Let's go somewhere else. Guys, this place is totally over. The crowd began to disperse, but the damage was done. Whispers were already spreading, phones were already buzzing with messages. I turned to Alexandra, but she was gone. The swinging kitchen door the only sign of her exit. I found her in the back alley, sitting on an overturned milk crate, still holding her order pad like a shield. Hey, I said softly, don't. Her voice was tight. Just ... don't. Alexandra, it's over. She laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. Everything I've worked for, every secret I've kept, every extra shift I've taken, all ruined because Brittany Watson wanted an ironic birthday party. We can fix this, I said, but she was already shaking her head. Fix it. My parents will know by morning. The whole school probably knows already. Yale's admissions office is one social media search away from. So what if they know? The words burst out of me. So what if people find out that you're not just some perfect princess in an ivory tower? That you actually work hard, that you have dreams of your own, that you're willing to serve burgers at midnight to make those dreams happen. You don't understand. No, I think I do. You're scared, not of people knowing you work here, but of people seeing the real you. Because the real Alexandra Chen isn't perfect, she's better than that. She looked up at me then, her eyes bright with unch tears. How can you say that? You know what people at school are like. You know what my parents are like. Yeah, I do. And I also know that the girl who's been serving pie and sharing secrets with me for the past 2 weeks is the most amazing person I've ever met. I stepped closer, holding out my hand. So what do you say, princess? Ready to stop being perfect and start being real? For a long moment, she just stared at my hand. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. The moment our fingers touched, something shifted, like a chemical reaction reaching its critical point, transforming into something entirely new. I'm terrified, she whispered. I know. I squeezed her hand. But you're not doing this alone. Behind us, the diner's back door open. Alexandra. Your parents are on the phone. It was Dot herself, looking concerned. They want to know what's going on. Alexandra took a deep breath, straightened her spine, and let go of my hand, but before she walked back inside, she turned to me. Stay. It wasn't just about tonight. It was about tomorrow and the next day, and all the days after when she'd have to face the consequences of her secret being exposed. Always, I said, someone has to make sure you don't forget how to be imperfect. She smiled, a small, wobbly thing, but real. Then she squared her shoulders and walked back into the diner, ready to face whatever came next. I followed, because that's what you do when you're watching someone you care about take on the world. You stand beside them and hope that sometimes, just sometimes, being imperfectly real is better than being perfectly fake. They say the moments that change your life aren't always the big ones. Sometimes they're as simple as watching someone you care about stand up for themselves, even when their voice shakes. Alexandra's conversation with her parents lasted exactly 47 minutes. I know because I counted every second, sitting in that back booth at Dots, watching her through the office window as she faced the phone with the same determination she usually reserved for particularly challenging chemistry problems. When she finally emerged, her eyes were red but her head was high, so I asked as she slid into the booth across from me. They single quotes Ray ... double quotes. She took a deep breath ... actually not as angry as I expected. Disappointed, yes, confused, definitely. But mostly, they just kept asking why I didn't tell them. And what did you say? The truth, she smiled slightly. That I needed to prove something to myself, even if I wasn't quite sure what it was until tonight, 2 weeks later. The headlines in the Harrison Prep gossip mill had mostly died down, turned out. The rich girl with a secret job wasn't nearly as scandalous as everyone had hoped, especially after the story got around that she was working to pay for college herself. Did you see Jessica's face in a Peel-It today? Emma Watson, Brittany's former best friend, had said loudly in the cafeteria, when she realized Alexandra wasn't just playing poor for attention. God, I should totally get a job too, it's like so inspirational. Alexandra had just rolled her eyes and continued reading her chemistry textbook. But I noticed she'd started sitting with us at lunch. Me, my auto shop friends, and a few other scholarship kids who'd never quite fit the Harrison Prep mold. You know what's weird, she said one day as we were finishing our lab report. I actually sleep better now. Even with the late shifts and everything being out in the open ... I sleep better. I looked at her then, really looked at her. The designer clothes were still there, but now mixed with comfortable sweaters and worn-in jeans. Her hair was often in a practical ponytail instead of perfect waves. And her smile ... her smile was real more often than not. Maybe because you're not trying to balance two separate lives anymore. Maybe. She paused, then added quietly, my parents came to the diner last night. I nearly dropped my beaker. What? Mom ordered pie. Dad tried the coffee. They ... They wanted to see where I work. She fiddled with her pen. Mom said she was proud of me. Not for working there specifically, but for knowing what I wanted and going after it, and Yale. They're still paying the difference in financial aid. Her smile turned mischievous. But I'm keeping the job. Turns out I kind of like being a diner waitress. Plus, the tips aren't bad. The company's not bad either, I added, trying to sound casual and probably failing miserably. No, she agreed, looking at me with those impossibly dark eyes. The company's pretty perfect. The bell rang, but neither of us moved to pack up, you know, I said. We never did get that coffee, you know, somewhere that doesn't require uniforms or motor oil. Are you asking me out? Marcus Rodriguez. Depends. Is Harrison Prep ready for their former perfect princess to be seen with a scholarship kid who works at an auto shop? She pretended to think about it. Well, that depends too. Is the scholarship kid ready to date someone who serves midnight pie and still occasionally color codes her study notes? I think I can handle it. I reached across the lab table and took her hand. After all, I've got a thing for imperfect princesses. And I've got a thing for guys who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. She squeezed my hand. Even if they are chronically late to class, hey, I'll have you know I haven't been late once since becoming your lab partner. I know, her smile softened. You show up every time, and really, that was the whole equation right there. Sometimes the perfect solution isn't about being perfect at all. Sometimes it's about showing up, being real, and finding someone who sees all your variables and still wants to solve the problem with you. 6 months later, Alexandra Chen still works the occasional night shift at Dot's Diner. She still gets perfect grades. But now she also gets engine grease on her designer clothes when she hangs out at the auto shop. She's heading to Yale in the fall to study chemistry. Not pre-med, with her parents' blessing and her own savings in the bank, and me. I'm the guy who gets to kiss her goodnight after her shifts, who helps her study for tests she doesn't really need help with, who falls a little more in love every time she geeks out about molecular structures or serves pie to tired truckers with the same grace she uses to present at school assemblies. Because that's the thing about formulas. Sometimes you have to break them to find something better. Sometimes the perfect equation isn't the one you started with, but the one you discover along the way. And sometimes, just sometimes, the princess isn't perfect at all, she's real. And that's better than perfect any day.